Well, welcome into a daily editorial here on the KE Report. This is a special daily editorial because we are following up some news for a company that I know a fair number of our listeners follow closely, and I know that because I got a number of emails on the back of the news release that hit the market last week that had this stock running quite nicely. I am chatting with Serengeti Resources and the president and CEO, Dave Moore. Serengeti is traded on the TSXV Venture Exchange under the symbol SIR. And Dave, that news that came out last week, the title was 514 meters of 0.64% copper and zero point 0.8 grams per ton gold. That equals about 2.15 grams per ton gold equivalent. This also includes 168 meters of 0.81% copper and 1.71 grams per ton gold. Gold equivalent, that is 3.42 grams per ton. I have to ask you, because a number of the questions that came in to me after this news hit is, what's the strategy behind these drill holes? What do they represent? Is this simply infill, or is there potential that this could be expansion drilling?
Hey, Cory. Well, that's a good question, and many of these holes, in fact, all of the holes are serving multiple purposes here. We're gathering the key engineering information to support the pre-feasibility study. This study is focused on the central zone. We've dropped off a lower grade zone, which was previously in the PEA. This current study focused entirely on the central zone. So the drilling is designed to increase the certainty of that resource, increase the footprint of the resource if we can do that. If we can bring more tons to a potential mine plan here, that's obviously highly beneficial. And then get the best idea on the grade distribution in the central zone, because in 2016 we drilled a hole through the central zone that returned a terrific intercept. Actually, an intercept similar to the headline intercept that we put out the other day, and that was basically a scissored hole. It was a 438 meter intercept of 0.71 copper and 0.83 grams per ton gold, and that was basically our hole 180 has drilled in a scissor fashion back across that, and that starts to outline a significant domain of really outstanding grade. So we're seeking to improve the certainty of the resource, expand it if we can, and get the best idea on this potential high-grade gold domain within the central zone. All of those things, of course, if we can do all of that, that goes potentially to a great improvement in the pre-feasibility study over the PEA results, which we believe is possible if we're successful in meeting all of those objectives.
Okay, Dave, I also do have to ask you, kind of on the track of, you mentioned this hole that was scissored. There has been a lot of drilling that's been done on this property. Is this hole, the one that was released, this headline number, is this hole by any means a twinning of any other old holes?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we were very careful in the design of this drill program to inform as much new ground or areas that previously didn't have the sort of drill density or didn't have holes going through particular spaces. That's what we're doing in this program. So it's a four-pronged drill program. It's engineering. It's if we can enhance the grade within the resource, which we're showing a strong possibility for doing here with this hole 180. We can expand the resource shell, and then of course we're always out there testing exploration bets as well. So it's a multi-pronged drilling program. Certainly no twinning holes. There's no merit to doing that.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. As I said, I got a couple emails asking more or less that specific question. I also want to touch on a cross-section that you released with that news release. It shows this hole 180, and it also shows how it starts pretty much right in the middle of this open pit shape, or the conceptual open pit, and goes into the bottom block cave. You've mentioned a couple of times that you're trying to get a better idea of grade and grade distribution. And so this hole went right through the open pit and this block cave. So I guess you do know what you're dealing with in terms of resources. How does this help you further define the grade distribution within that already PEA?
Well, the pit grades are pretty exceptional there. I mean, we point out there's a sub-interval in that hole 180. There's a 100-meter interval there of 1% copper and 0.68 grams gold. That's at the base of the overburden. That was a higher copper grade than we expected to see. And I would attribute this potentially to the fact we're drilling significantly larger diameter core here in this program than previously. That may be giving us more representative samples. So we've got a nice surprise in the pit, or potential pit on the copper grade side. Where we get some really stunning numbers here is in the center of that tall stope, 168 meters of 1.7 grams gold and 0.8 copper. We believe there's a preferred orientation to that high-grade gold domain, and this is only the second hole that we've drilled across that trend. We began to suspect that from a hole we drilled that it mentioned previously, 177 from 2016. We drill across it, we get that same very nice enriched gold zone. So a number of the other holes, and this was included in the plan that was in the news release, a number of the other holes that are yet to be released are drilled in that same orientation, so back and forth across that potential high-grade gold domain. So if we can expand the resource envelope, demonstrate that there is some continuity to this high-grade gold domain, I mean, these are going to be very positive things as we bring all of these drilling results forward into a new resource estimate for the deposit.
How many more drill holes do you have to release that are still within the plan, maybe yet to even be drilled?
Well, we wrapped up the drill program in early September, so drilling is completed at this point. But we still have 13 holes to release, and they're all shown in that plan that was provided with the release last Thursday. So 13 holes still to release. We will. There's results pending for all of those. We'll be putting them out as we get the numbers, and we'll be batching those releases. So we'd anticipate putting drill results out here over the next 2 to 6 week time frame, something on that order, in multiple releases.
All right, so as you continue with releasing some of this news, it is all part of the bigger picture pre-feasibility study that is due out about mid-2019. As you said, you're doing some wider core drilling. This is going to be used for some metallurgical testing. What do you see coming out of that metallurgical testing in terms of resource makeup that would be crucial for de-risking it further?
Well, our very initial work back 2007, 2008, I guess, provided an initial look at the metallurgical recovery and concentrate that we would generate from the central zone at Quinnica. We need to do more of that work. I mean, that's one test. It provided a very encouraging result. I mean, it looks like Quinnica can generate a good, high-grade, precious metal-rich concentrate with a low content of deleterious or penalty elements. That was one test. We need to demonstrate that now in more substantive tests, which are appropriate for a pre-feasibility study. So we look at the metallurgical recoveries in the pit domain, in the underground domain, and then we do much more exhaustive testing than we would have done initially back, about 10 years ago on this project, actually.
So one of the things that has been very important with companies further de-risking projects, especially large projects like this one, is the ability to possibly find some sort of a high-grade component or just reduce the initial capex so that it isn't such a front-end hit. Is that another factor, another couple options that you're looking at for the PFS as you move through it?
Yes, absolutely, Cory. I mean, and that's also our drilling program, and the distribution of holes is directed towards that objective as well. But what we've determined here is that if we can expand the initial pit in the PEA was about just over a 2-year pit. If we can take that out to a 5-year pit, we can potentially defer the start of underground development until we're in production from the pit, and that moves from initial capital, move that into sustaining capital. That has the potential of very significantly improving project economics. So, I mean, that's one aspect. I guess the other thing we're doing in the PFS, which is different from the PEA, if I haven't mentioned it already, is we're focusing the study on the very best deposit here. We've dropped the lower grade deposit, simplified the project from a capital and environmental standpoint, looking at rejigging the development schedule to readjust that capital initial capital inflow. If we can meet all of those objectives, we could have a very interesting study here.
All right, let's wrap it up here just with a general overview, something that I think everybody does need to understand if they haven't been following along with this project. You do have a partner that is funding all of the work up to this PFS. This is Pasco Daewoo. They've been on board with you for a number of years now and just recently put in some more money that is helping you continue on with this work and bring it to PFS. Talk about the relationship here.
Yeah, you bet. So Pasco Daewoo is they're contributing or have contributed $7 million to the Quinnica Copper Corp, which is the private company that we own. Serengeti owns 65% of. Pasco Daewoo, as a result of their $8.2 million investment, owns 35% interest in that private company. And it's that company which is advancing the PFS, which is scheduled for completion in mid-2019. That $7 million investment by Pasco Daewoo will, we think, complete that study. So we're fully funded through completion of a PFS. So mid-2019, we've got a feasibility stage project, ready to go that we own 65% interest in what should be a rising copper market. So it puts us in a great spot.
All right, Dave, I do appreciate the update. And if anybody has any follow-up questions for Dave, please email me at fleck@kereport.com. Happy to continue to follow along with this story because I know a lot of our listeners do have an interest here. And in all fairness, the stock did move off of that news release. And hey, Dave, I hope that you continue to drill some nice holes, and I hope that this all pans out into a positive PFS that, again, is scheduled for mid-next year. David, appreciate your time. Thanks again for the update.
You bet. Thanks, Cory.